What's up, do life and a body you love chicks? Today we are going to talk about how to up-level your life. If you're a believer, it's gonna be on the scene of like, how do you step into this person that God is calling you to be? How do you be like the best version of you? Because here's what I see happen. So we all go on these little like personal development journeys where we have like some sort of a focus on this external factor. And that might be weight loss, that might be your finances, it might be relationships or like a career change or something external. But what has to happen for us to like up level in some way and then keep the results is we have to change inside, right? Like you have to up level your thoughts, your beliefs, and that in turn is going to impact your actions. And I see people get really stuck in trying to figure out like what's their purpose. And, like they're waiting for some like divine calling where like the clouds part and Jesus is like, you are supposed to be a nurse or like something like that. But I think really what the reality is that we all have purpose in whatever it is that we're doing right now. Whatever your circumstances, you're where you're supposed to be, but you'll find a whole lot of purpose in just becoming a better version of who you are and serving in whatever way you're serving now. And might that lead to different opportunities or some divine purpose? Sure. It can change all the time, right? Especially if we are faith-based and we're like, God's will. We don't always know what the future's going to hold. We're just willing to go and do, right? But to be able to step into all of that, we have to constantly be up leveling who we are. And even if you're not a spiritual person, I truly believe that every human being is obligated to become the best version of themselves that they can. And by the way, there's no end goal. There's no end game. We can always do better, right? And so don't strive for external things to validate you and all of this perfectionism and achievement and all of that. Like that's fine, but that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like changing your thoughts and your belief patterns in a way where you are happier, more fulfilled, serving others better, where you're being this light that we're called to be, right? It's like an internal thing, and external things may start to change for sure. They will 100% actually. I don't know what that's going to be. But you can't focus on an external thing, grind to get it. You won't keep it anyways if you haven't changed who you are. So we see a really prime example of this that I use a lot because it's the obvious one is when people win millions of dollars in the lottery and then within like a couple of years they're broke. And you're like, how does somebody go from living on 50 grand a year to being gifted like $20 million and spend it in 2 years? How is that possible? It's really easy. They've studied this in like NFL football players who have come up from like really poor upbringing, and then they get all of this money and they don't know how to manage it, and they don't realize they're not going to get paid in the off season, and like all of these things happen and they're like balling out of control, and then they're completely flat broke. And it's like because there's a whole mindset that goes around finances, right? And so somebody can toss a bunch of money at you and it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to manage it. Your identity isn't this person who manages this money yet. You don't have these skills yet. And so that's just like one example, but the same thing is true with like weight loss. Like we crash diet to get down to a certain weight and we don't maintain it. Well, probably because our methods suck. You guys know how I feel about that. But also there's a whole lot of belief, and our actions are a result of all of these feelings and thoughts that we have. And so if we want to up level in our life, any area, doesn't matter. Stop focusing on the area for a second and focus on how you as a human being up level. And just know that there's no such thing as perfection. So it's like this ongoing process across your whole life. Like you're never too old to learn new tricks, right? You can't teach an old dog new tricks, they say. BS. I call BS on that. Everybody can always be growing and learning, and your wisdom will deepen the older that you get if you're learning on purpose, and you don't have your head buried in the sand, right? So I think like a secular term for this would be like self-actualization within the Christian language, we would say like sanctification. You're becoming more sanctified, more Christ-like, all of the time. Like there should be evidence of growth. Now, does that mean we're ever going to be perfect like Jesus? No, it's literally not going to happen. And some of us, like me, are a lot farther away than some of y'all. The point isn't that you ever get there. You don't. You never reach. There's no finish line. You don't get there. But the point is that it's a growth process. And in that, there's an insane amount of purpose and hope and joy, and also suck. Some of it's going to suck. Growing is hard. Your brain is always in defense mode. Okay. Your brain is in safety mode, I guess is a better way of putting that, where it wants to protect you. And so whatever you're doing right now, if it's kept you alive, that's exactly what your brain wants you to keep doing, because your brain only cares about you being alive. Your brain does not care about you becoming some enlightened human being or more Christ-like or living your divine purpose. Your brain doesn't care about any of that. Your brain cares about food, shelter, safety, not making change. And that is why change is so incredibly difficult. It is why people stay in terrible situations. People stay in jobs that they hate. They stay in abusive relationships. They keep themselves making the same poor financial choices over and over and over again, keeping themselves stuck when they can logically see a better way. They can logically see that the food that they're eating is poisoning their body, maybe to the point of no return, and they don't stop. And I'm not saying any of this in judgment. We all have an area where we need to like buckle down, right? But why do we do that? We do that because our brain feels safe with familiarity. I can never say that word. What's the old saying? The devil you know is better than the devil you don't, or something along those lines. Meaning, well, at least I know what's going on here. I'm comfortable here. I know what to expect. My brain can handle this. So when you're going to try to reach some next level, and in the area or internal, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be probably actually painful. And in it, there's so much growth. This is where purpose lies. You becoming the best version of you means that if you're a stay-at-home mom, you're going to have more patience with your children. You're going to be the light in your home and in your community, right? If you are in the boardroom and you're running an executive team, you're going to have a better culture on your team when you have up-leveled, right? If you're a nurse, your patients might be driving you absolutely crazy, and maybe you don't even want to be a nurse anymore. Unfortunately, that's the case for many nurses I know. They're burnt out. But if you are working on you, you're going to show up better in your role, no matter how you feel about it, right? And everything that it just basically affects everything that we do in life if we are becoming a better version of ourselves. And that will be seen. Like, this is how we be the light that we're supposed to be, is becoming better versions of ourselves. It's just going to like pour out of you. You won't even have to focus on it. It's just like, you're going to be more fun to be around. You are going to be lighter. You're going to be more grounded. You're not going to be so triggered by every little thing. If you're triggered all the time, you got to get up in here and work on some thoughts, right? And so our external circumstances start to impact our life and our daily, like how we feel about ourselves and all of these things a lot less. You become like grounded and like unswayable and all of these things. And then what happens is all of these other areas of your life start to improve. Everything affects everything else. So there's a couple things we got to do to get here, to start the process, because there's no get here, right? There's no end. So the first thing we got to do is completely reprogram our brain. That sounds really simple, right? Like, this is like breaking these chains that hold us back. This is a lifelong process. You don't have one chain that's holding you down. You have millions. And when you break free of those and replace that with new, healthier thoughts, those healthier thoughts still might even need a little bit more breaking down and a little bit more breaking down. And we just keep on going. So here's the deal. What we think isn't necessarily true. In fact, most of what we think is not true. Truth is a continuum. That sounds crazy because truth should be black and white, right? Something is either true or it's false. However, there are very few things in life that are actually that way. So we can say the earth is round. Fact. Actually, no, there are people that argue about that now. So let's say gravity is a thing. Like if you drop something, it's going to fall and it's going to hit the ground. Fact. Okay. Most people aren't going to argue with that. But the thoughts that we're walking around within our head that are then dictating our actions, those aren't provable or improvable things. They're more like opinions that we have formed because of things that were told to us in our childhood, things we saw happen in our childhood or adulthood. It's not always childhood, right? Those are a little bit more deep-seated, but we're constantly forming opinions from the world around us. We see something happen, we make a generalization, it is now our opinion about that topic, right? And to a certain degree, that kind of like has to happen. And so the thoughts that we have, they have served a purpose. They have gotten us where we are, right? Well, now if we want to go to a new place, we want to be an up-leveled human, then we have to change those thought patterns. So we have to start to question, is how I'm viewing this situation, is this true? We have to work through this. And so some of it is past trauma, some of it is past hurt, some of it is just a misalignment with the thoughts that we have. And so it's like, how do we deconstruct that and then reprogram new thoughts there, right? So if you're faith-based, then this happens through like your whole sanctification process with God. So it's in spending time with God. We are called to have fellowship with the Lord, like a relationship. So that doesn't mean I believe in God. So I can believe that God is real and not follow him and not have a relationship with him. And that's changing nothing. That's just an acknowledgement that he is a thing. That's like me saying like, there's an apple sitting on my counter. Well, okay, well, that doesn't do any good unless I eat the apple, right? So you can acknowledge that God is a thing that is real, but not be taking action on that belief. So if you have a relationship with God, though, where you are in prayer, you're trying to get to know him by reading his word, you're in fellowship with other Christians, you're going to church, you're doing all of these things, and you're growing in your faith with him, you're getting to know him more and more and more, you're naturally going to start changing. It's just going to happen. The Holy Spirit lives inside of you. Your thoughts can't possibly stay where they are because as you're learning this, God is changing your heart. So for my personal development junkies, this is personal development on steroids, right? Like you literally have divine intervention of changing who you are. And sometimes that's not even the goal. Maybe the goal is just like, I'm just trying to get to know as much as I can about God and like be who he wants me to be and like be in this relationship with him and feel his presence and feel his calm and like whatever it is that you're seeking there. But in the process of doing that, he's going to be changing your heart. Your heart is going to become more in alignment with God. And that in and of itself is a huge like growth in who you are. So you'll look back at your life and you should be able to see evidence of this growth. Are you the same person that you were 5 years ago? If so, you're probably really not steeped in the word a whole lot or spending a lot of time with God because something about you should be different. And it may not be evident externally. It might be that you're less triggered driving down the road. Do you flip less people off while you're driving down the road? I didn't say none. I just said less, right? Are you more calm? Are you more empathetic to another person's situation and what they're going through and less judgy, not more judgy, less judgy? Note that one, people. There's just all kinds of little evidence, right? And it might be subtle. And so this is why it's fun if you are somebody who journals to like go back and read some of your stuff and you're just like, how was I ever struggling with that? Like, it seems like so elementary, but that's where you were before. And that's great. Like, we should see evidence of that growth. And so if we want to hang on to old beliefs that aren't serving us, and we're trying to grow with those beliefs still in place, it's going to be darn near impossible. See that? Swearing a little bit less because we're talking about Jesus today. It's going to be pretty hard to do that because, again, your feelings and your thoughts are what's going to dictate your actions. So if you're only focused on the outcome, but you're not changing the internal, It's always going to feel like you're in this kayak trying to like paddle upstream to get back to your homies that are like way up the river. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm making a little progress, but this is exhausting. And I'll just float down here and meet y'all at the bottom of the river. Okay. And that's how it's always going to feel. You're always going to feel like you're in battle against yourself. And so we have to like be willing to look at our thoughts and go, are these true? Is this still serving me? There's a whole lot of deceit that's been put in our minds, false beliefs that were either spoken over us. If you want to get real scriptural or real spiritual with it, if the devil wants to keep you from living your purpose and stepping into your highest self or having a really good relationship with God, what's the best way to do that? A subtle little lie that keeps you stuck. You're not good enough. You can't really do this. Who do you think you are? Well, that worked for them, but it's not going to work for you. None of those things are true. What is possible for you is so much bigger than you think. And I know that's even true for me. It's true for all of us. Like, we're capable of so much when we get all the garbage out of our head. Like, literally, the only thing stopping us is our own self. So it doesn't really matter how the thoughts got there. It doesn't matter if your mother was not the nicest person and said it to you as a child, or if it really was planted there by the devil, or it's some terrible traumatic experience that you went through. It doesn't matter how the thought got there. Do you want to let the thought keep you stuck? Because when you change your perspective about what's possible, look out. You can do so much crazy stuff. And even if there's not like some big crazy thing that you're trying to accomplish, it doesn't matter. Don't you just want like more joy and happiness and just doing better in like just your daily grind of things? Like, it doesn't have to be like this big grandiose thing, right? It's in the mundane things. I want to be more grateful for the grind and the struggles that I do have. If I got to do my dishes, okay, well, at least I have a house and a kitchen and all of these things. Like, I want to shift my perspective into being this more grateful human, right? And so we have to start really deconstructing all of these thoughts and replacing them with truer thoughts. And I say truer because you're probably not going to go from, I believe I can't do anything, to I believe that I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. Or like with some big, like crazy leap all at one time. But what'll happen is you start to believe a little bit more about what's possible for you, a little bit more about who you really are, who God sees you to be. We don't see that version of us, right? Because it's so far away. If we're going to be on this planet for 80 years and we're always constantly growing and changing and becoming a better version of ourselves, then you at 40 is going to look a lot different who you are at 80. Like, that person can be so freaking amazing. And we look at aging as if it's like this, it's cool until you're like 30. And then from there, it's all just like slow death. Like, everything sucks and my body's quitting on me and blah, blah, blah. No, like, every single year that you're on this planet is an opportunity for you to see how much more your mind can expand, how much more wisdom you can acquire, how much more you can strengthen your relationship with the Lord before you go to meet your maker. Like, I view aging as like this beautiful, amazing process because, I mean, like, it's the coolest journey ever of being a human and getting to be aware of all of these things. Like, we're aware of our own thoughts. There's no other animals on the planet that are aware of their own thoughts. And so with great power comes great responsibility. I don't even know what movie quote that's from, but that was so cheesy. But for real, like, we have this amazing ability to think about our thoughts. So then we need to do something with that. We are called to be better versions of ourselves, right? And by the way, this is why I love helping women with weight loss, because I don't really give a crap what anybody weighs. I could care less. I barely care what I weigh anymore. I mean, I care a little bit, but really not that much. But here's what happens. There's so much mindset stuff going on when people are struggling with their weight, right? There's food addiction. There's low self-worth. There's a lack of discipline and self-control. And when we go to lose weight in a way that isn't a diet, so you can diet, that's just about following some food rules, right? It's probably going to wreck your metabolism anyways, but really you're just following food rules. You're not learning anything about nutrition. You're not learning anything about yourself. And you're going to eventually backslide into old patterns of behavior because there are these thoughts that are buried. Okay. And those thoughts might be, I'm not good enough, or you have no impulse control and you seek comfort in food, or like there's just a million things. There's so many things that we end up unpacking in my program. People who don't think they have any mindset issues whatsoever usually are like floored. They're like, I didn't even know that was in there, but I'm so glad I figured it out and got it out. And then they're just like, oh, so much easier to just treat my body good now that I got rid of that baggage, or I broke that chain, right? And so it's really personal development. Like that's what weight loss is. It's personal development. Otherwise, you're going to hit the number on the scale and you're still not going to be happy. The happiness won't come from the number on the scale. We talked about this a couple of weeks back. Like that's not where your confidence is going to come from, right? And so I love taking women on this adventure of figuring out how to love themselves again and their body and want to treat their body with respect. And it doesn't mean being a food zealot and never, ever having anything that's not good for you. But it's just this general reframing of how we treat our body and tapping back into what our body wants, because your body is always telling you what it wants. Like there's a mind, body, spiritual connection. Like all of these things are happening for you. You're a spiritual being, you have a brain, and you have a body, and you don't get to separate those. Like they're all together and they all impact each other. And so when you can tune back into what your body wants, because your body naturally tells you, but we've been programmed. There are these thoughts, there are these chains, right? We've been programmed through experiences or teaching, or let's take a really basic one, clean your plate club. Where are my clean your plate club girls at? We were all taught you clean your plate. Like our parents thought we were going to starve or something like that. It's a really hard habit to break. And now this isn't like some deep-seated thing. It's just something that we've been taught since we were little. If you don't finish your plate of food, this child in Africa is going to starve. Literally doesn't make any sense. We understand that doesn't make any sense now that we're adults. But we still have all of this guilt and shame if we scrape food off of our plate and throw it in the garbage. And so we overeat and make our bodies unhealthy. Like the whole thing's so completely illogical. Yet we've all experienced that. Most of us anyways. I have. And how do we like deconstruct that and reframe that and then step into something that's more true and listen to our body, feeding ourselves based on what our body wants instead of what we're trying to do emotionally or whatever. Like it's so much deeper than here's the amount of protein that you should eat. Like I could tell all of you right now, go eat this, and this, and you'll lose weight, but nobody would do it. So it doesn't matter. Like none of that matters. Like you got to get to the heart of things and then weight stays off forever. It's the same thing when I'm coaching women in business. This is, by the way, why I'm obsessed with coaching. You guys know that I'm obsessed with coaching. Now, listen, I loved being a nurse, loved it, but I'm obsessed with coaching because we get into all of these things. And so the laundry list of people that I want to hire to be my coaches is very long. Like I have like a wish list of coaches. And so for me, I'm like, the best way for me to up level is reading my Bible every single day. Obviously church, getting back into small groups. There was one point where I was in like 3 Bible studies or small groups at a time. And my husband was like, okay, like I get it, but you're like ridiculous. And that was ridiculous. But like I had so much growth. I don't think I swore for 3 months, you guys, when I was doing all of that. Like, so that's primary for me. But then if I have a certain area where I know I'm not where I want to be, then I need people to help me. So I could figure things out on my own, but I believe that we're meant to be in a community and get support that way. And so I want to learn from other people. There was a point in time where I was like, I'll just figure it all out myself. I'm smart. Well, that's ego, like not wanting help. And I'm not saying it needs to be coaching, but you can get help from other people. You can express your needs better to your family. You may need therapy to break some of these chains and deconstruct some of these thoughts, or it could be coaching or whatever it is. But like, I was always like, well, whatever, I'll figure it out. It's not a matter of intelligence. That's not what it is. We need the collective. Like we have this amazing access to an abundance of information and people who have knowledge sets that are not our own. And we can go readily access these people, these programs, these systems, and shortcut years and years and years. and hurry that piece of our personal development along so we can focus on something else. Like, it's brilliant. It's amazing. But also, we need other people. You guys need to be in community. So if that's your church for your spiritual growth, if that's like a gym that has like a bunch of people, like a good community, not like a bunch of people who are just like sitting around watching each other work out. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean more like group exercise classes or yoga or something where there's like a good community support thing. Like, be around other people who are trying to go on the same journey that you're going on, who value the same things that you're valuing. So you're changing your own thoughts, right? But then you're around other people who share your values. There's a huge benefit to that. Like, your behavior is normalized by the people that you're around. This is why we have all these cliche sayings about like, you are the sum of the 4 people you spend the most time with. Those all sound so cheesy, but they're like actually true. And that doesn't mean that you just go cutting everybody out of your life who isn't on the same path as you. But choose your company wisely. Put things in your brain that are going to help you change some of these thoughts. If you're on a health journey, then maybe instead of listening to a true crime podcast on your way to work, which I'm not knocking those, I actually listened to one the other day and I was like, I see the appeal. This is fascinating. I love this. But maybe instead of that, you throw on a health podcast. Find somebody who is talking about a topic of health that you enjoy. I have a whole slew of them. If you guys want pointers on who I like to listen to, hit me up. I will freely share that information with you. There are some podcasts that I live and die by, listen to them all the time. But what that's doing is it's putting all the good stuff in my brain, putting the things that I want to focus on in my brain. And that can help you start to reframe some of these things as well. And then the last thing, if you're going to attempt to up-level in any area of life or grow who you are from the inside, which I recommend everybody be doing all the time, constantly. And especially if you want to step into who God has called you to be. If you're a faith-based person and you want to step into who God is calling you to be, get ready to be uncomfortable, boo. Because it's not comfortable. You are going to have to walk in faith. So that's like a cutesy thing that I think we say in the Christian realm, like, oh, walk by faith, even when I can't see, and things like that. But like, internalize that for a second and really think about what that means. It means you're going to take action when you don't know the results. So if you're only going to eat healthy food if it guarantees that you lose 5 pounds, that's just not treating your body well for the sake of treating your body well or acting in faith, right? So that was a very shallow, superficial example. But what if God's calling you to do something like really scary? Go through the Bible and see the wild things that these people were doing. So everybody gets real judgy with the Bible characters because, let's face it, they did some wild things that were not in accordance with scripture, right? Like King David, he's got his side piece and then he kills her husband because he gets his side piece pregnant. And like, this is wild. If we put Bible stories into like with modern day, like vernacular and made like movies out of them, it would be like the equivalent of like the show Scandal or something. I haven't even seen the show Scandal, but it sounds like it's pretty scandalous. It would just be something wild, right? These people were doing wild, horrible things and God was still using them, right? Because they believed in God and they loved God and they were repenting of those things and turning away from those things and whatever. But my point was not how sinful they were, but how they did these crazy wild things. Like, Abraham, why don't you just get up with your old self and walk on out of camp where you've lived your whole life and take some servants and you're going to just hightail it across to this other land. Oh, I'm not telling you where you're going, by the way. You'll figure it out when you get there. I just need you to uproot your entire life. You're on a need to know basis though. I'll tell you when to stop walking. Like, and some of us are like hemming and hawing about like changing jobs or something. Like faith means you ain't going to know. You don't get to know how it's going to end. There isn't a guarantee. It's not, well, I'm going to do this thing because I'm going to get this result. Nope. You didn't get to know what the result's going to be. It'll probably be amazing. It might suck. The destination might suck. Are you still willing to just go with it? Are you willing to step out and act in faith? Now that's if you're going into like something crazy to be called. But here, like if we're just keeping it real with like you changing who you are, then just, can you do the digging even though you don't know the fruit that it's going to produce? Can you put yourself through the tough, like getting real with yourself, having some real talk, getting real ironed with like, where are your weaknesses? What are the things about you that maybe aren't fantastic that you could do some work on? We all have them. I have a ton of them. I publicly air them. You guys know most of them. And once you know what those things are and you're willing to make some changes, changing your thoughts is really not fun. It's not fun. It's very unsettling. Can you like walk with faith into that and just know that God's got you? Like your brain's not going to melt and crumble. You're going to come out of this a better person, but it's a whole lot of work. Next leveling your life, if we're doing it like this, which is, in my opinion, the only way that you do it, it's not by chasing, I want to be debt free. That's great. Put a plan in place, get a coach for that, get a money coach. But you still better be doing the internal work or it's not really going to get you anywhere. If you want to lose weight, great, get a weight loss coach. But if they're not making you do some internal work, you better be doing it yourself. Don't just go on a diet. Do the mindset work. Why are you eating Twinkies every night at 10 o'clock? There's a reason for it. Figure it out. If you can't figure it out, get a coach or a therapist or somebody to help you figure it out, right? If you want to make a career move, okay, great. Go to college and get whatever degree you need. But what is the career move going to bring you to your life that you're seeking? Most of the things that we have like this discomfort with, changing our external circumstances isn't going to bring us the joy and the peace that we think that it is. It's really truly up-leveling who we are. So I know this was like probably super cheesy to some of you, but I really want to hear how this one sat with you guys, because I just love this topic. I want to see every single one of you up-leveling in your life through up-leveling who you are, whether that's a faith-based walk or a secular walk where you're like deconstructing old thought patterns, whatever that is for you, like that's where you're going to feel more fulfillment, more joy, more contentment, and then you're going to step into your purpose better, easier. You're going to show up better for the people around you, for your loved ones, in your place of employment. This is how you become more of that light that, oh my word, the world needs right now, right? Instead of more gripey, grumpy Sallys, like the world needs your light right now. And if you're just stuck in your own heaviness and like blahness, it's really hard to be that light. And so I want you to like feel your very, very best in all areas of your life. And that's all going to start in your brain, in your mind, and in your heart. And so if this resonates with you, please reach out and let me know. I would love to have some conversation on this topic. And I will, and the doors for the Keep It Off Academy are open right now with special pricing and insane bonuses. And they're only going to be available until the 22nd. So if you want to check that out, go to nikkioday.com/fat loss. So I know that's not the point of today's podcast episode, but this is an amazing deal that I've never offered and it's expiring. And so as my loyal listeners, I want y'all to know about this. So go check that out. And if you feel pulled to take the plunge and hop in the Keep It Off Academy, we will see you there and it will be amazing. And I'm so excited to lock arms with you on that. And if not, I will catch you next week right here on next week's episode.